What is up, guys? Welcome to Jets, Mets, and Regrets. I'm here with Johnny today. John, how are you doing?
Doing good today, Jason. We're getting closer and closer.
Oh, we are. What are we getting closer to exactly? What are you referring to?
Well, just the whole saga with the quarterbacks and trying to figure out what might be going on with the Jets. So
Okay.
I think things are developing, and that's what we're going to get into today.
And I think we have a list of some guys we want, right? Or some options that the media has talked about who are available.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a couple that I've had my eye on. I'm sure they're the same that's been going around the media. But just hoping that we land one of them and we don't land with none of them. That's the big goal. You know what I mean? At least we have somebody behind center next year, and we have a confident reasoning and just logic decision making that led us to that choice. So that by the time September comes around, we're not hoping and praying, and we actually have somebody that we think is established.
Yeah, and we have some good options. They all have their pros and cons, but today we're going to be talking about Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Stafford. Nah, I can't. I wish, right? Maybe not Stafford. I don't know.
Burrow,
Yeah,
Hurts,
exactly. Brett Favre, Chad Pennington. But yeah, let's get into it. I think, and if you have a couple other guys too, let me know. But I think the guys we really have in mind are going to be Rodgers, Jimmy G, and Derek Carr. Those are the ones that have been linked the most for various reasons. But yeah, let's get right into it. I'd love to start with Rodgers.
All right.
I think Rodgers is going to be, I've been thinking about it a lot. I think I'm going to put Rodgers number 3 on my list. I'd love to hear where you have him. And I think only for the fact that he is a very, very short-term option.
He's number 3 on your list. Interesting. All right.
I think I would put Rodgers. Yeah, and I'll talk about all factors, but I think my problem with Rodgers right now is, one, the fact that does he really want to play? Does he really want to come back? Even if he comes back from this 4-day darkness retreat, that
Right.
means everything's doing this darkness retreat. I think for me, I'm a little bit worried about him going out and really being passionate about football again. Last year was a tough year from him statistically. It was one of his worst years actually ever. He had a 2.2 interception rate, which was one of the highest of his careers. To put that into perspective, his interception rate is usually 1.4.
Yeah, and I see he only had a QBR of 39.3, which is pretty bad. That's really bad, actually.
Yeah. So, what is it? Was it Devontae Adams? Was it a bunch of new young receivers? I'm not a Green Bay fan. I can't.
Was it the organization?
Was it the organization tired of them? They drafted Jordan Love. They drafted defense instead of offense. All these things, and not supporting him. So who actually knows? But I think for me, I'm a little bit concerned about the passion, and also this will be the most short-term play quarterback probably out of the other two we talked about. So for me, it's I think the Jets are a win-now team with our defense, right? With our offensive weapons, with Brees and Garrett. Shout out to Garrett and Sauce for winning their respective Rookie of the Year awards.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Congrats to them.
But yeah, I think that's the only thing holding me back. I think if the passion's going to be there, and I think if he could, not even expecting a Tom Brady, but if you could tell me, hey, 3-4 pretty good years, I'm willing to do that. And I think compensation also is important. Are we giving up some first-round picks for him and mortgaging the future for a guy who's not going to really be the future? Right. Or is it something where we could give up a second-round pick, and have some stipulations based off if they make the playoffs, if they make the Super Bowl, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, he's 39 now, and, like you said, you'll probably only get a couple of years out of him. Only Tom Brady is really, he's an aberration when it comes to guys who played that late into their careers. But it does happen, and he's been able to remain fairly healthy over his career. I don't really see him missing a lot of time if he were to come to the Jets. I think that, if he comes to the Jets, he's going to start every game. Whereas, some of the other guys that we might be referring to later on, they tend to have some injury issues, right? But I think you said it before. I mean, the Jets are in a win now kind of position. I don't think that there's any reason why the Jets shouldn't think that if they got somebody like Aaron Rodgers that they would, could seriously compete for a Super Bowl. I think that the Jets really did separate themselves from when I say last year, I mean like this past season and then the season before that, just the steps that they made in terms of the rookies that they were able to draft. Obviously, Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. Congrats to them again on winning offensive and defensive rookies of the year. That's awesome, right? And we got these guys on our team, and we're just building the team around these guys, but we don't have that steady quarterback. And once you put somebody in that position, especially somebody like Rodgers, who's obviously first ballot Hall of Famer, he's won a Super Bowl. He has multiple MVPs, which he won as recently as 2 years ago. You slot him into this system, and really that's all. There's really no crazy system that you need to slot him into, right? He knows Nathaniel Hackett very well, who we just hired as a coordinator, so there is a lot of upside to this. And okay, so we're in a win now and we mortgage the future. Who cares? Like, go for it. Like the Jets haven't had they haven't even made the playoffs, right, in 12 years. And at this point, I mean, I've said it before, I know you have too, and I think it's kind of the sentiment around a lot of Jets fans is, do something. You know what I mean? Like, really try. Really don't sell us a dream. Don't sell us Zach Wilson. Oh, yeah, he had a great combine or whatever. I don't know. Like, really commit. Pay the people who need to be paid to win the games and get you into the playoffs. And once you're in the playoffs, it can really be anything. You could go as far as hot as your team is. And as far as the AFC East goes, it's kind of wide open. I mean, you saw the Bills, they kind of broke down in the playoffs this year. And the Dolphins, I mean, they started off really hot, but then they cooled off at the end of the season. And honestly, probably should have beaten the Bills, right, in the playoffs. That's kind of how
sorry.
Yeah, Jake. The Bills, I mean, they kind of squeaked by that win. And then the Patriots, I mean, I don't believe in Mac Jones. I don't think that he's very good. So, again, you slip Aaron Rodgers into this team, I don't think there's any reason why they can't win the division and then make a deep playoff run.
Yeah, and then also, too, let me go on the record and say, this isn't to say that if the Jets get Rodgers, I'm going to be mad.
Yeah, no, I mean, number 3, right?
I think, I just wanted to take this angle, I think, on him today. I think you can make the argument either way. I think I can make the argument why he would be number 1 on the list, right? We're still talking 4-time All-Pro, right? 4-time MVP, Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl winning MVP. A lot of great hardware on his resume. But for me, just taking the approach of like, hey, this is a very short-term solution. What would some of the longer-term solutions maybe be like? Because I would love not only to win now, but be in there year in, year out. How can we be a team like Buffalo or San Fran or the Chiefs or the Bengals now, right? Where every year we're competing.
Right, but again, what's the difference between, committing to Rodgers now for a couple of years and then in a couple of years when the next batch of free agents or quarterbacks who are, willing to get traded by their teams, that just can't go after them. You know what I mean? At that time, there's really no reason to say that we'll be like mortgaging much of the future. We can always buy more or try and get more guys, lure them to the team. As long as we continue to put a competitive team on the field, people are going to want to be drawn to that. And they're going to recognize the fact that they can have a successful career if they come to the Jets, if it is one of those guys who ends up coming long term. But again, for the time being, I mean, I just think it's like Aaron Rodgers here and then everybody else that we're going to be talking about is kind of just like very far away, in my opinion. I would really just Aaron Rodgers, if he would come to the Jets, that would make me as happy as anything else.
Yeah, but I think the team still has glaring needs, right? And who's to say what does the team look like in 2 to 3 years? Like we're talking now, obviously, but in 2 to 3 years, do they have the same team, right? Are they still good? Do they have?
Yeah, but you're always going to need a quarterback, no matter what.
Yeah, but I think too, like offensive line, for example, right? The Jets are a little bit tight on cap space this year, so they're going to have to get creative, and I think they can, right? But I think to have some first-round picks to adjust the O-line, that's going to be important. I can't sit here and say that I don't know how Rodgers would play with this offensive line. Like, I think that is a valid concern. No matter what quarterback plays, it doesn't matter how good you are. this offensive line is a concern. So I'm just saying I think we have a couple more holes that have to be addressed other than quarterback. Obviously, the quarterback is the start, and the quarterback would be tremendous in that regard. But I think we have to make sure that we're protecting him long term too, especially a guy who is 39 years old.
Yeah, true. I mean, listen, obviously if there's two holes in a boat, you got to fill both of them, right? Or else the boat's going to sink. And that goes the same for the Jets. But just because, the offensive line might not be what it needs to be doesn't mean that there's any reason to not go after Rodgers, because anybody that you put behind center, if they don't have a good offensive line, they're going to get beat up. So, I just don't see that as a real deterrent to not pursue Rodgers. Yeah. But so what? Like, he's still shifty. He can still break tackles. He knows when to take hits, or I should say he knows how to take hits in a safe way, I think. And yeah, get him here.
Yeah, and I don't think the Jets are going to be deterred, right? This is just me as the fan talking on, like, if this thing is going to work out, like, I think we got to protect the guy, and I think we have to have some assets in some way to protect him. But
again, like with the offensive line, we could draft some guys and bulk it up. But at the end of the day, we also did have Elijah Vera-Tucker hurt for most of the year. We had Mekhi Becton hurt for the entire year. You add those two guys, and even if they play, where their floor is, that's going to greatly improve the offensive line that we saw this year.
Yeah, but I also think that's a big what if, and I want to bring that what if into the next quarterback conversation when it comes to injuries, and that's going to be Jimmy G.
Yeah.
And I think the thing I like about Jimmy G, and I would kind of slate him into that number 2 spot. One, I think he's 31 years old, he's young. He's not going to be one of those quarterbacks who plays until he's probably 40 or 41 or 42, but he's still 31. He's very familiar with Saleh and the system, right? Playing in San Fran, Saleh obviously coaching.
Yeah, true.
Staff in San Fran. And when you look at his numbers, I think he's a definition sometimes of like what a Jet fan really wants in a quarterback, right? Like, you don't really need him to be a Tom Brady or a Manning or a Breeze or a Rodgers. But at the same time, like, you need him to be a little bit more than maybe what Wilson obviously is giving you, right? Or even a Mike White. But I think obviously the guy is a proven winner, right? When we look at San Fran, like, the team is built very similar to how the Jets are built. They have a great defense, right? They really rely on that defense. They have a good running game, and then they have some offensive weapons at receiver and at tight end that you could play with. I think the Jets are not going to call them a mirror image because the Jets have a long way to go before they get on San Fran's level to make it to NFC Championship games or the Super Bowl, and obviously, AFC Championship games for the Jets, but in regard to San Fran. But anyway, the biggest knock on him, kind of looking at his numbers right now, and when he was a starter with San Fran, he's been a starter right now, it looks like, for 6 years with San Fran, and only 2 of those years has he been fully healthy.
Right.
That is a major concern. But looking at his numbers career-wise, has a 2.4 interception rate, so a full, a little bit more turnovers, but on years that he's played the entire year, to give, some insight and examples, 2021, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 3,800 yards, right? His year in 2019 was probably his best year, close to 4,000 yards, just 22 yards short. He had 27 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So a little bit more of a turnover rate with him. But what I really like is he's younger, right? He's not young, but younger. He understands Saleh, and he's proven to be successful in a system and a team that's built up like the Jets. Now, granted, San Fran hasn't gotten over that hump, right? They still haven't won that Super Bowl. So you could say, hey, maybe he can't get there. But maybe he can, right? He has the experience and all that. So, yeah, I think he's a very interesting play. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is a lot better talent-wise than him. But you wouldn't have to give up any draft capital for Jimmy G since he's a free agent. So I think he is a very intriguing option. But health is a concern. And me talking about offensive line real quick, John, before I let you chime in, I'm even more concerned with Jimmy G with this offensive line. But we keep some draft picks to address that. So, or trade for a veteran, either way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about if Jimmy G were able to stay healthy and he were to stay the starter. I don't know what they're doing in San Fran. Kyle Shanahan has his own method of doing whatever, with his team. But I don't see why they ever really turned away from Jimmy G. I think that he is a really solid quarterback, and when he starts, they tend to win games, right? I mean, he has a career 40-17 record, which is fantastic. I mean, when you play that many games, and win, have that kind of ratio, that means something, right? And again, the Jets have a really good team. They, like you said, they have great skills players in Brees Hall and offensive rookie of the year, Garrett Wilson, right? So, you just slot him in there and, they play that ground and pound football that the Jets do and just put points on the board and let the defense really win the game. Again, putting him in the system, I could see them going on a long playoff run, which, the 49ers have been incredibly relevant over the last couple of years with Jimmy G behind center. And, you can't – I understand that you might make the argument, oh, well, they took Jimmy Garoppolo out and just placed in Brock Purdy. And, so it's kind of like it doesn't matter, like, who they put in. But, no, I think that, they just happened to have another good quarterback in Brock Purdy, So just having Jimmy G and seeing just like the system that he works in, I think that he's always really had success. But obviously, the injuries, that's huge because he does no good sitting on the bench, sitting on the IR, right? I mean,
yep.
What are we gonna do if he's hurt? We're basically back where we started, and all we're doing is just paying a guy a shit ton of guaranteed money,
And your best ability, your availability. Is that how it goes?
I guess.
All right. Did I make that up? That's a saying, right?
No, I think that's a saying. I just, maybe
it's probably not your best ability, but it's a start, right? If you're not available, I mean, it doesn't even matter what you bring to the table because you're not there.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. That's actually a new segment. Words of Wisdom by Jason.
Are they real sayings?
Yeah. Cool. And lastly, switching over to, and this is another intriguing option, and this is one of my favorite options. I think, like any quarterback that we've talked about, there are concerns too. And going into Derek Carr, they did talk about today. I know this episode will probably come out in a day or two, but today it came out on Thursday, February 9th, that Carr has visited the Saints. I think it's actually a second day in meeting with the team, and supposedly it's going pretty well. So we'll see what happens there. I know New York isn't for everybody. I have been reading on social media in the last couple of days that, hey, maybe New York isn't for a guy like Carr. Like, he might not be able to handle that type of pressure or handle that type of scrutiny. And it's going to be a lot more than it was in Oakland and Vegas. But I think for me, again, 31 years old, probably not having to give up any draft capital. If so, maybe you're giving away a third rounder or fourth rounder, but he's not going to cost you any first. Could be potentially free based off of free in terms of draft capital if the Raiders did release him. And looking at his numbers, the guy almost had a 5,000-yard season in 2021. And has had numerous 4,000-yard seasons. So turnovers should be a little bit high. I mean, he's had last year 24 and 14 for touchdown interception, 23 and 14, 27 and 9, 21 and 8, 19 and 10. So he does throw a lot of picks. I haven't watched that many Raider games. I know a stat came out that the Raiders have never fielded their defense has never been better than 20. Or something like that in Carr's time there. So maybe he's always playing like from behind, then he's airing the ball out and playing more predictable football, which could easily cause the high yardage, but also the high interception rate, right? When you're having to pass all the time. So I think there's a number of factors. But again, I really like his age. I like his upside coming to a team where he's never had a team defensively as good as the Jets are. Obviously, he's had great weapons. Maybe you could even argue they downgrade a little bit with the offensive weapons the Jets have. You go from Devontae and Waller and Renfro. Like, those are, not to discredit the Jets guys, right? They have potential, but that is a lineup. That is a lineup offensively. But yeah, I think he's really, really intriguing. And again, I think the only concerns I would really have is potentially interceptions, potentially handling the New York market. But other than that, I think long-term wise, this is a guy you could really have lead your team for the next 4, 5, 6 years potentially when we talk about that, not only like win now mode, but sustained success. And that's why I think I really like him a little bit over Rodgers. But yeah, love to see your thoughts on Carr.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, this might be a little bit of a shocking opinion, but I'm not crazy about Derek Carr the more that I've been thinking about him. Just because the games that I have watched, I feel like Derek Carr, he's had the opportunity, when there's less than 2 minutes left in the game and it's a one-score game, he hasn't really stepped up to win the games. I remember like there's been a good amount of games where he hasn't been able to rise to the occasion. And yeah, okay, he may be able to win you a couple of games here and there, and give your team a winning season if all the other players around him are good. But I don't see him as being the guy like Aaron Rodgers. Like you really like when you think about him, you think of, I mean, he's had just like I think he's had the two craziest Hail Mary catches or the plays like in the last 15 years in the NFL. And you just I don't know, I just don't get that kind of winning vibe from Derek Carr. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. He isn't like out of Jimmy G and Rodgers and Carr. Carr is the one guy who, hey, I'm not an NFL quarterback, right?
Right.
But when we're comparing NFL quarterbacks, like he's not a winner.
Right.
Just saying. He's better than me, right? He's better than you, but
of course,
other guys, he technically isn't a winner. So yeah, I definitely think I could get on board with that. And yeah, like I said, they all have their pros and cons. So I think ultimately, like we'd be happy with one out of the three at the end of the day over Wilson. I think most Jet fans could probably agree with that. I think if we miss out on all three of these guys, I'd be a little bit concerned. Because then you start to get into Jameis Winston and, some of that like second and third tier quarterback play, which isn't maybe better than Wilson, but not as much upside. So we'll see what happens. And I think I'd be really interested to see is there a veteran who becomes available via trade that we don't know about right now, right? Hey, do they say we got to trade up and, draft the guy from Ohio State or, CJ Stroud or draft Bryce Young from Alabama? Like, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Or do we give Mike White another shot?
Hey, is Mike White the guy? Is Mike White the guy? Do they go out and get a DeAndre Hopkins? Let's give him some better offensive weapons. Let's give him a better line and see what this guy could do. Maybe. So it'll be really, really intriguing to see. Please, everybody, leave your comments on how you would rank these top three, Carr, Rodgers, and Jimmy G. If there's somebody we missed, if you want to see Wilson get another shot, if you want to see Mike White get a shot, leave some comments below too on guys we might miss.
Yeah, and I know that you've talked about in the past that you wanted to see the Jets kind of hold on to Wilson without putting the bear of the entire franchise on his shoulders. So maybe bringing in a veteran quarterback while still keeping him on the roster is kind of what Zach Wilson needs, right? To maybe eventually be somebody that the Jets could rely on. But I think it's very obvious right now that Zach Wilson should not be the starter in 2023, and that one of these three guys, if they don't come to the Jets and we're left with just Zach Wilson, or we're left with trying to get a draft pick in this year's draft, I mean, I just don't like those options at all. I want to finally just get somebody that we can say they're not going to be the sole reason why we lose every single game that we've lost. You know what I mean? Like, let some of the losses be on the defense, or let some of the losses be on, the running back who fumbles the ball. It's like every loss that the Jets have had was because of the quarterback this year. And it's felt like that way for the last 10 years. I mean, it really has. So I think that getting one of these guys, showing the fans, showing the organization, showing the world that we are serious about winning. I think that's something that they absolutely have to do, or else they're really going to be sitting with egg on their face in a really bad way.
Everybody knows they need a quarterback, and one intriguing option, actually, I was about to end the episode, just so everybody knows, but I want to throw out one intriguing option real quick. I want to see what the Bears do. You had Justin Fields. He was, on and off. He was hurt. Tremendous runner, right? Passing wise, not bad, but not the potential yet that you want to see in him. You would like to see him pass it more, obviously, long term. So I don't know if the running sustained, and a lot more injuries that way too, right? As a quarterback, let's be real. But it'll be interesting. They have a high pick, right? Are they going to go quarterback and move on from Fields, or are they going to try to trade that pick? So I think that's something I really want to look out for that I don't think is being talked enough about now. And I'm not saying the Jets are definitely going to be linked to that. But I think the Jets could be linked. If a guy like that comes available, like, I'm down to take a swing.
I think the Jets should keep any option open at this point. Justin
Absolutely.
Fields is better than Zach Wilson. I don't think there's any question about that. At least in terms of controlling the game, knowing that every option's taken, and I need to run and use my legs to get the first down and just move the chains. I mean, Zach Wilson just looked completely lost in every single game that he played. And I shouldn't say that. There were a couple games where he was able to manage the game, but it didn't last long. He was never able to build on top of the good that he did this year. It seemed like every step forward was 2 steps back. And I can't really say I've watched too many Bears games. I've really only seen the highlights of Justin Fields, which the highlights are electric. His long runs where he's so fast. That's going to cause it's going to entice really anybody. He also didn't really have too much weapons to throw to either. I mean, what do you have, like Mooney or like Cole Kmet? Like, come on, like it's not really that great either. I think that moving to the Jets would benefit him as well. But yeah, not that I'm endorsing him either, but really keep every option open. And just find somebody that you really do feel like it's not like a long shot. That might be, now that I'm thinking about it, now I'm talking about it, I don't know if I would want Justin Fields just because of that. Like, it still feels like a long shot. I really don't want to go for a long shot. I want to go for somebody that I really feel is solid. It's going to solidify the team, and the team's going to be able to win and build around him.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting if Rodgers, Jimmy G, and Derek Carr fall. Like, what is next? So, but I agree with you. Leave all options open.
Maybe we'll sign all.
But anyway, let's go into our regrets portion of the episode. So I will start us off. And I think I was telling you earlier, my biggest regret is we have the Super Bowl in town this week, and I regret not taking off of work, John. Not that I'm a guy who likes to take off all the time and all of that, but there's so many cool events going on that I feel like I missed out on. So the next time I'm living in a city that has the Super Bowl, I will make sure I am off and I'm enjoying all these events going on. So that would be my biggest regret of the week.
All right. My regret is actually, I was telling you and Steve, we were on the phone before we got on this call, that the World Baseball Classic is a month away. Really excited for it. I can't wait to check out the games out at Chase Field with you and Steve and our other buddy Mike in about a month. And my regret is, the fact that I haven't really paid any attention to the World Baseball Classic and the prior classics. This is really the first time. I've always been like a Mets fan, but I've never really been like a true baseball fan, following both the American and National Leagues. I've really only known players that play against the Mets, because those are the games that I watch. But in 2017, I was watching some of the highlights from when USA finally won after, what was it, the 5th or 6th World Baseball Classic. The Japan's won twice, and you just like kind of got this feel that USA should be able to put a winning team on the field, and they finally were able to do it in 2017. So I kind of regret not having those experiences and being able to see USA, but I'm making up for it now that we're really dedicating to show them our love. USA.
Hey, first of many now, right? First of many World Baseball Classics.
That's right. I
agree. Tradition, everybody. About to become a tradition.
Can't wait.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining. Like I said before, leave your comments below on who you think the Jets quarterback should be. If you miss somebody, let us know. Give us some crazy scenarios if you're thinking of something that we didn't think of, like the Justin Fields scenario. But yeah, looking forward to hearing everybody's comments. Everybody have a great night, and we will find out soon who's QBing our Jets.
Yep. Congratulations again to Sauce Gardner and to Garrett Wilson, offensive and defensive rookies of the year. Congrats, guys.
I think we need some sauce bling. We need that chain.
The chain. Sauce.
Yeah. Something a little bit cheaper.
By the way, I know this is like right at the end of the episode, but I cannot wait for whatever the Sauce Gardner Super Bowl commercial for Buffalo Wild Wings is.
Oh,
They've
yeah.
been like doing those little teasers in the games showing up.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. We'll see everybody later. Thank you for joining.